In this video, I'll show you how I made the classic creamy cob loaf dip with foraged wild garlic. In recent years, I've been learning about foraging, and it's something that I really look forward to every spring. And wild garlic is a really easy one to find and to use. Over the years, I've made quite a few things with it. I've made pesto, which is the first thing I think that most people make with wild garlic. I have also tried various pasta sauces and even taking wild garlic flowers and pressing them into homemade pasta. I have tried a beautiful creamy sausage and fennel pizza. I've made wild garlic bread. This year I wanted to try something a little bit different. Wild garlic is sort of incorrectly named, I think, because when you have garlic in your head, it doesn't actually taste like garlic. It really does taste more like chives with a bit of a garlic flavor to it. And so as I was coming up with ideas of what I wanted to make this year, I thought about things that you would classically use chives for, because I think that going down the pathway of garlic leads you to disappointment, to be quite honest, because wild garlic is not as good as normal garlic at being garlic, but it's actually good at being its own thing, and it's a very good alternative to chives, I think, if you like a garlicky type chive thing. So instead of looking for existing wild garlic recipes, I wanted to find something that really would be well suited to chives that I could just replace with wild garlic. So I had a bit of a brainwave, and I thought about the classic Australian party dish called cob loaf. Now, cob loaf is really a dip in a loaf of bread, and it is so good. It's impossible not to love it. Everyone loves it, although maybe if you're lactose intolerant, you wouldn't like it. It is creamy and cheesy and acidic, and it's just so good. There's lots of different variations of it that people have made over the years, and I thought this could be the right creaminess to tie with wild garlic and try it with that. So that's what I decided to do. So my plan really is to just literally substitute the spinach for the wild garlic. So step one in a wild garlic recipe is to collect some wild garlic. The way that I have found it nearby is by joining local foraging groups on Facebook, and you'll be able to find information quite quickly about where it is in the area near you. Now, it is something that is seasonally available at markets and grocery stores, and I'm sure it's possible to buy it online as well. When it comes to identifying wild garlic, I've found that once you've had it once, you've seen it, you've touched it, you've tasted it, you're actually not even really identifying it anymore as much as just recognizing it. And it does have a recognizable smell when you come across it in the wild. When collecting wild garlic, all you need to do is pick the leaves. It's pretty easy. Once I've collected my leaves, I like to just have a little look at them to make sure that they all are in fact wild garlic leaves and I haven't got anything else tangled up in there, and also to just check for bugs and sometimes you can get a leaf that's a bit slimy or something like that. You just want to separate out the leaves individually to just make sure you're happy with what you have. I've seen recommendations online that it's better to take the younger leaves and that they are better, but to be honest, when I'm collecting it, I just grab whatever I can because I just always feel like I'm going to get in trouble, so I'm always a bit nervous and I just grab whatever I can and then run away. So I always end up with a mixture of leaves because of that. So then I like to wash my leaves, and I just rinse them in water. I'll just take a few at a time, put them in the water for a little bit, and then I'll just carefully take each one out individually, just as an opportunity to remove any of the dirt that might be on there, and also just having a look at the leaves again, just to make sure that they look okay, and also to make sure that there's no other funny leaves in there. Basically, you're just trying to make sure that there's nothing in there that you don't want to eat. While these were drying, I actually collected some magnolia flowers that were just starting to open up from my garden and included them in my foraged fairy bread because I was making a little bit of a party spread. So here you can see how I just peel off the petals and pull out that center bit. Magnolia flowers have a really interesting sort of subtle gingery taste, and of course they're really beautiful. I would really like to cook with them more often and try some new recipe ideas, but I don't have a whole lot of inspiration. So if you have any creative, adventurous new ideas of what I could make out of magnolia flowers or out of wild garlic or anything foraged really, leave a comment below because I'm really interested in trying new things. But back to the wild garlic leaves, you want to stack them up and just roll them into little cigar rolls quite tightly and then just chop them. Now this was a little mistake that I made, that I was chopping them into long strands like this, and I should have actually chopped it a lot finer because for a dip, no one really wants long strands of a leaf in it. Like that's a bit awkward. So I ended up putting the leaves in the pan, cooking them for a bit, and then realizing that these long strands were not going to work. And so then I took them out of the pan and chopped them up more finely because it definitely needed it. So if I was doing it again, I'd chop it up more finely in the first place. So then onto the dip, I added 250 grams of cream cheese and 125 grams of sour cream.
So I've got my cream cheese and sour cream in the bowl. Now the next step is to add the soup mix. There's a lot of different things about which soup mix that you should use. The classic one is French onion soup. I think the original recipe also doesn't include sour cream, but I felt like it needs sour cream to go with that wild garlic, like that more sort of rounded creamy flavor I think will make sense for this version of it. I did see on TikTok that a lot of people said that instead of using the classic French onion soup, to use spring vegetable soup. I kind of got 3 different types and I can't decide whether I want to use golden vegetable, which I think looks like spring vegetable, or spring vegetable soup, or Florida spring vegetable. I don't even know what that means. Anyway, so I've got to make a decision.
I ended up choosing the Florida spring vegetable mix, and it was a little bit of a fail because it has those small dehydrated vegetables in it and they ended up being quite chewy in the final dip. So I definitely recommend using one that doesn't have those little vegetables in it. So I'll leave a link below to one that I've found that I think would work better. After the soup mix, I added in some cooked red onion, mayonnaise, and parmesan into the mixture. I'll leave all of the measurements and the full details on this recipe in the description below. As you can see, this dip is really quite easy because you're just mixing all this stuff together, really. So the final thing I added into the mixture, of course, was the wild garlic, and I just stirred it through, got it all combined, and then left it to the side because it was time to focus on the loaf of bread. So the first step you need to do is cut horizontally across the top of the loaf. Now, the traditional way to do it is to use a round cob loaf, but I don't see why you couldn't use any shaped bread really. But anyway, so you cut off the top and then basically just carve out all of the internal soft bits of bread. But it's really important to keep them because you're gonna keep that to use to dip into the dip when it's finished. So I just pulled out all of those bits of bread, tearing them apart and putting them to the side. As you do this, it's important to just try and get as much as you can because this creates more space for more dip. So then literally, you just put the dip in the bread. So I just spooned it out and put it in. I did try to just make sure that I pushed it down so that it was sitting evenly and flat across the top.
I've just been licking the bowl. It tastes so good. I think that this is going to be a success, and I think that this is the best use for wild garlic because it like adds the creaminess that you need because it's quite like a salty, chivesy flavor. It tastes like chives mixed with garlic, and so it needs that creaminess, and I just think that creaminess makes sense with wild garlic. And like this, the spring vegetable mix, although I'm sure you don't need the Florida one, just all that together, it's tasting so good, and I haven't even cooked it yet. So I'm gonna put it in the oven now, and I'm so excited to eat it.
So literally all you need to do is put it in the oven for about 10 to 15 minutes and that's it. Then you just want to serve it with the parts of bread that you pulled out originally and it's ready to go. You can also serve it with other things like carrots and celery. They do actually really taste good with it. But of course the best thing is the inside of the bread loaf dipped in this creamy sauce. And I just think the wild garlic is the perfect addition to it. It just adds so much flavor and it just makes a lot of sense. The reason why this is such a great party dish, aside from the fact that of course everyone loves it and it tastes so good, is you can make it ahead of time. So if you were having a party, you could make the dip and just put it in the fridge and then carve out the cob loaf and have that ready. And then when you actually were entertaining, just assemble it and put it in the oven for 10 to 15 minutes. Then it's fresh and it's hot and it's steamy and it's beautiful, but it didn't really take up much effort when you're actually hosting. So that's just another reason why it's just so good. In the spirit of Australian party food and foraging food, I also made some foraged flour fairy bread, which was actually really good. And I served it with some wild violet syrup that I made from violets that I harvested from my garden. So if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe. I'm always trying new things and figuring things out. I hope that this video has inspired you to maybe consider foraging yourself with the things that are around you and to connect with nature and connect with the seasons. I just think it's such a lovely thing to do.